I ended up in the ER because of a prank. That's the part people always pause on, like they're waiting for a punchline. But there isn't one. I was lying on a hospital bed with blood drying in my hair, a cervical collar around my neck, and a doctor asking if I could feel both arms, while my manager told HR it was just an accident, and HR told me I was being dramatic. And the worst part? I believed them for a few minutes. I thought maybe I was overreacting. Maybe I should have laughed it off like they expected. Maybe I should have said, "Good one, guys," while someone dabbed the blood off my ear. But lying there under fluorescent lights, trying not to throw up from the vertigo, something inside me clicked. A quiet switch. Nothing loud, nothing heroic, just an understanding. If I didn't draw a line now, they'd bury me under their jokes until something worse happened. Before all that, life in the office was boring in the best way. I'm the guy who fixes things no one else wants to fix. Servers, switches, printers older than half the interns. I don't talk much. I don't do team culture. I show up, do my job well, help everyone else do theirs, and go home. I've never been the center of anything, and I wasn't asking to be. Invisible but necessary suited me fine. Then Ethan arrived. New manager, new energy, new philosophy. "We're going to loosen this place up," he told us during his first team meeting, hands spread like he was pitching a startup. "Tech doesn't have to be stiff. We can have fun while we work." Fun apparently meant bringing in Kyle. Kyle was his favorite hire. His words, not ours. According to HR, they'd worked together before, years ago. According to office rumor, Ethan practically raised the guy's career like a proud uncle. And according to Kyle himself, he was back to shake things up. He said that with a grin that looked like he'd been practicing it in the elevator mirror. Their version of shaking things up started small. A sticky note on my monitor with "Smile" written on it. Not funny, but harmless. Then someone changed my desktop wallpaper to a cursed collage of Ethan's motivational quotes. A day later, Kyle taped googly eyes onto the server rack, and I walked in on him laughing at his own joke. I didn't yell. I didn't report anything. I just said calmly, "Don't touch my workstation again." Kyle smirked like a teenager caught scribbling on a desk. "Relax, man. It's team bonding." Ethan overheard and added, "Yeah, lighten up. We're just keeping morale high." I'd been in corporate long enough to know exactly what that meant. If you set a boundary, you become the problem. Still, I tried being direct. I approached Ethan privately. "I don't like people messing with my equipment," I said. "It slows down work, and it's not my thing." He nodded, but it was the nod of someone who wasn't listening at all. "We'll keep it chill," he said, waving a hand like brushing away dust. "Just have a sense of humor. It helps." I kept my face neutral. People like him hate that more than anger. Over the next week, the jokes escalated. They swapped my chair with one that slowly sank whenever I sat. They changed my keyboard layout. They put a fake spider under my desk. Someone played a loud scream sound from my speakers when I logged in. Every time, Ethan laughed first. Kyle laughed louder, and the rest of the team looked at me like I was supposed to laugh too. I didn't. I just reset the settings, replaced the chair, kept working. And every time I didn't laugh, they treated it like a challenge. The turning point came when I tried going through the right channels. I talked to HR, calmly, factually. I didn't ask for anyone to be punished. I just said the pranks were distracting, unprofessional, and making it hard to work. The HR rep, a woman named Lindsay, gave me the kind of smile people reserve for toddlers mid-tantrum. You just need to integrate into the culture a little more. They're not targeting you. They're including you. Try not to take it so seriously. I walked out of that meeting with a very clear understanding. If anything happened, I'd be blamed for feeling it too much. I honestly thought the situation would fade after that, that maybe they'd get bored and move on. But something about my going to HR made the air shift. Kyle became bolder, Ethan more amused, and suddenly every joke felt like it was aimed directly at me. The day before the fall, Kyle actually said it out loud during lunch. "Man, if one person here just loosened up, this place would be perfect." Ethan smirked at him, then at me, a silent agreement between two people who thought they were harmless, because they didn't mean real damage. I should have recognized the pattern sooner. People who say it's just a joke always think intent matters more than impact. They think the bruise is funny because they didn't intend for it to hurt. My last normal morning was quiet. Too quiet. I walked into the office with a 30-pound server chassis in my arms, heading toward the back room to install new drives. I wasn't thinking about pranks. I was thinking about RAID arrays and ticket queues. I should have noticed the way Ethan and Kyle stood by the hallway pretending to talk, or the way one of the interns glanced at me then quickly looked away, or the slight tension in the doorframe. But I didn't. I was working. Just working. And then, no warning, no sound. Just a snap of pressure across my chest as something invisible clotheslined me mid-step. My hands flew open. The server dropped. My body pitched backward. My head hit metal with a crack that vibrated through my teeth. The world spun sideways. Someone shouted my name, but it sounded like it came from underwater. Then everything went white. When I woke up in the ambulance, the medic asked what happened. I told him I'd tripped because that was the script I'd been given. Because I thought if I said the truth out loud, I'd sound ridiculous. A prank? Really? It took the ER doctor saying, "This could have been much worse," for the fear to sink in. It took Lindsay from HR telling me, "Let's not turn this into a big thing," for the anger to finally appear. I didn't sleep that night. Didn't eat. Didn't talk. I sat at my desk at home, neck throbbing, head buzzing, staring at a blank document. HR called me dramatic. Ethan called it an accident. Kyle called it bad timing. But the truth was simpler than all of that. I wasn't dramatic. I was done. And the first thing I did was start writing. Not an email. Not yet. I started by writing down everything I could remember in plain language, like I was explaining it to someone who hadn't been there at all. Because that's what it felt like I was going to have to do. Tell this story to people who saw it, and still somehow didn't see it. The ER discharged me with a cervical collar, a stack of papers, and a headache that pulsed behind my eyes like a second heartbeat. Diagnosis: concussion, cervical strain, possible soft tissue damage. Recommendation: rest, limited screen time, no lifting, no sudden movements. Work accident? The nurse asked, pen hovering over the form. I hesitated for half a second. Yeah, I said. Work. She checked a box, circled something, and suddenly it was official. Not a joke, not a vibe, an incident. When I stepped out of the sliding doors, Ethan was there, leaning against his car, tie loosened, like he'd just had a long, exhausting day of being inconvenienced. "You scared the hell out of everyone, man," he said, forcing a laugh. "You okay?" "My head hit metal," I answered. Something was strung across the door. His eyes flicked away for a fraction of a second. "Yeah, about that. It was supposed to be just a harmless gag. You weren't supposed to be carrying anything heavy. Bad timing. We didn't think—" "No," I cut in. "You didn't." He shifted his weight. "Look, HR already knows. We told them what happened. They're logging it as an accident. If we all just stay on the same page, it won't turn into a big investigation or anything. Nobody wants that." There it was. The script again. Stay on the same page. Keep it small. Make it good for the team. "What did you tell them?" I asked. "That you tripped," he said. "Which you kinda did. The tape just surprised you." "The tape that someone tied to the doorframe at chest height," I said. Ethan's jaw tightened just for a second. "We're not putting names on it. We don't need to get anyone in trouble. You know how HR gets. They overreact." Funny. That wasn't my experience so far. "I'll talk to HR myself," I told him. He smiled like a parent whose kid had just declared they were running away from home to the neighbor's yard. "Sure, just keep it reasonable, okay? Don't make it personal." I went home, slept in pieces, and woke up feeling like I'd been hit by a small car instead of a server rack. The next day, I technically could have stayed home. The doctor had offered a note, but the thought of them talking about me while I wasn't there sat wrong in my chest. So I went in. The office fell quiet when I walked through the door. People glanced at the caller, then back at their screens. Nobody made eye contact for more than a second. Guilt has a way of making everyone look busy. Kyle was at his desk, spinning a pen between his fingers. He froze when he saw me, then forced a grin. "Hey man, you're alive," he said. "Sorry about the scare. We really didn't think you'd, wipe out like that." "Who's we?" I asked. He swallowed. "It was just tape. We do that all the time. Online, it's like a trend." "Right," I said. "You ever do it to yourself while carrying 30 pounds and not looking at the floor?" He didn't answer that. Ethan appeared in the doorway like he'd been waiting for his cue. "Can we grab a room?" he asked. HR was already waiting in there. Lindsay sat with a notepad she didn't really need, and a smile that made my skin crawl. The kind of smile people wear when they've already decided what your story is. "Grant, first of all, we're glad you're okay," she began. "We just want to make sure we document everything properly, so you're protected, and the company is too." There was a form in front of her, mostly filled out. Accidental trip in server room. Employee reports, dizziness and fall. No equipment malfunction. No third-party involvement. I read it twice. "There was tape," I said, "across the doorway. Someone put it there on purpose." Ethan cleared his throat. "We didn't see who did it. It could have been anyone. The cleaners, maybe. Or someone from another team. No reason to assume malice." I looked at him. "You told me it was a gag." He gave a tight laugh. "Figure of speech. You know how we joke around sometimes." My neck hurt. My head hurt. But my memory did not. "I'm not signing that," I said, tapping the form. Lindsay's smile faltered for a nanosecond. "You're not signing what, exactly?" "A report that leaves out what actually happened," I said. "There was tape. It was at chest height. It wasn't some random cable. It didn't walk there by itself." She shifted tactics. "We can add that you believe there may have been an obstruction." "I don't believe it," I said. "I hit it." Ethan leaned forward, elbows on his knees. "Grant, be reasonable. If you start implying someone did this intentionally, it turns into a whole thing. People get pulled in, there's blame, it gets ugly. Nobody meant for you to get hurt." That word again. Reasonable. Not safe. Not honest. Reasonable. "Someone thought it would be funny," I said. "That's intent." Lindsay sighed softly, like I just refused to share a toy. "Look, from a policy standpoint, intent is hard to prove. It makes HR's job a lot more complicated. If we log this as a simple accident, your medical is covered. You're fine, and we move on." "And if we don't?" I asked. She held my gaze for the first time. "Then you're making a very big deal out of what was clearly a prank gone wrong, and it will affect relationships on your team. I just don't want you to burn bridges over something like this." There it was, the threat dressed up as concern. I thought about the tape, about the way Ethan had looked away outside the ER, about Kyle's practiced grin, about the sticky notes, the swapped chairs, the spider under my desk. One thing maybe is an accident. 10 things in a row is a pattern. "I'd like my own statement attached to the incident report," I said. "In my own words, unedited." Lindsay frowned. "That's not our usual process." "I don't care," I said. "It's mine." A muscle in her jaw twitched. "Okay, send it to me and we'll see what we can do." The meeting ended with Ethan clapping my shoulder a little too hard and saying, "Glad you're okay, man. No hard feelings, right?" I looked at him. "That depends on whether you keep thinking this is a joke." I went back to my desk, sat down carefully, and opened the document I'd started the night before. This time I wasn't just dumping thoughts. I structured it. Date, time, location, people present, what was said, what happened, the color of the tape, the angle, the weight of the server, the doctor's words, the box the nurse checked. Every time I'd reported smaller things before and been told to integrate into the culture. By the time I finished, it looked less like a story and more like a timeline. Boring, precise, undeniable. I emailed it to Lindsay with the subject line, "Formal statement for incident report. Please attach in full." She replied 10 minutes later, "Got it. We'll review and incorporate relevant parts. No need to dramatize this. We're all on the same side." They really liked that word. Dramatize. I stared at her email for a long moment. Then I opened my browser and clicked on the link I'd never bothered with before, the one in the employee handbook no one reads, the one labeled Ethics and Compliance Hotline, confidential. HR had just made it very clear whose side they were on. I decided to find someone whose job wasn't to make it go away. Under my collar, the skin on my neck still burned from the bruise, but the anger underneath it had cooled into something sharper. Not rage, not panic, just clarity. The kind you get when someone finally shows you exactly who they are. The compliance form wasn't friendly. It didn't try to guide my emotions the way HR did. It didn't ask if I wanted to move past the incident or keep the team environment positive. It asked for facts, dates, names, witnesses, documentation, and I had all of those. I filled it out slowly, carefully, like wiring a circuit. Every detail had weight now. The sticky notes, the changed wallpaper, the swap chair, the spider, the comments, the HR meeting, the tape, the fall, the ER. Every instance I'd tried to be polite. Every moment they'd laughed instead. When I hit submit, nothing happened. No confirmation, no warm-toned, "Thank you for sharing." The page just refreshed, blank again. I think that's when I realized real systems don't need you to feel good. They just need the truth. The next morning, Lindsay asked me to step into a conference room just to clarify a few things. I walked in and instantly recognized the setup. The long table, the two empty chairs across from hers, the slight tension in the air. "Grant," she said, "your email was quite extensive. I'm concerned you may be interpreting events more harshly than they were intended." I wrote exactly what happened. "And that's fine," she said, voice syrup sweet. "But we need to align on language. Words matter in these reports." Before I could answer, someone knocked on the door. It wasn't Ethan. It wasn't Kyle. It was a woman I'd never seen before, wearing a badge clipped to her belt instead of her shirt. Black slacks. No smile. "Are you Lindsay Brooke?" she asked. Lindsay's whole expression tightened. "Yes. Can I help you?" "Compliance review," the woman said. "We'll need the incident file. All drafts, emails, and any previous internal complaints involving the same individuals." The silence that followed was a different kind of quiet than the one in my office the day after the fall. This one was colder, heavier. Of course," Lindsay said, standing a little too quickly. "We can coordinate a time, maybe next week." "Now," the woman said. She walked past Lindsay, placed a folder in front of me, and said, "Mr. Turner, we'll speak shortly." For the first time since the fall, I felt something like oxygen in my lungs. I went back to my desk and watched the office shift around me. Not dramatically, not like in a movie, more like someone had dimmed a single light, and suddenly you could see the shadows better. Ethan's door closed. Kyle stopped spinning in his chair. The jokes quieted. People who normally chatted on their way to refill water suddenly kept their eyes forward. Around noon, one of the junior analysts, someone who had always been polite but distant, hovered near my desk. He glanced around nervously. "Hey," he whispered, "can I show you something?" I nodded. He slid his phone across the desk. A screenshot. A group chat. The header said, "Break Room Legends." My stomach tightened. It was a conversation between Ethan and Kyle, time-stamped the morning of my fall. Kyle: "El Mao, what if we tape the doorway and he walks into it?" Ethan: "He won't. He never carries shot." Kyle: "He's bringing that server today." Ethan: "Do it, but keep it low-key. We don't need a meltdown." Kyle: "Dude, imagine his face." I stared at the screen, not blinking, not breathing. "Why are you showing me this?" I asked quietly. The analyst swallowed. Because they're telling everyone you tripped, and I saw you in the ER photo, and it wasn't right." Thank you, I said. He nodded once, grabbed his phone, and walked away fast, like he was afraid the floor might give out under him. An hour later, compliance called me in. The woman from earlier introduced herself as Marin. No small talk, no softening. She clicked a recorder on the table. Mr. Turner, we've reviewed your written statement. We need to verify a few points. It wasn't an interrogation. It wasn't therapy. It was precision. Every detail I gave her, she matched with a follow-up question. Times, dates, names, witnesses, prior incidents. Every moment HR had told me not to take seriously. When I finished describing the fall, she leaned forward. We've already pulled camera footage, she said. My pulse kicked. There is clear visibility of the doorway, she continued. But before I discuss that, do you have any additional evidence you wish to submit? The screenshot. The one thing Ethan and Kyle couldn't explain away as banter. Yes, I said, pulling out my phone. I do. She took my phone, transferred the file, and wrote something on her clipboard. Thank you. This is relevant. I didn't know what else to say, so I said nothing. After the interview, I walked back to my desk, feeling like I was moving through a different building entirely. Not my company. Not the place where they'd laughed at me for weeks. Somewhere behind Ethan's closed office door, I heard raised voices. Not shouting, just the unmistakable pitch of panic. Later that afternoon, Marin called Ethan into a separate room. Kyle followed. The door closed. No one came out for a long time. People tried not to stare. They failed. Around 3, I went to refill my water bottle. On the way, I passed the glass conference room. Ethan was sitting at the table, face pale and tight, hands clasped so hard his knuckles matched the collar of his shirt. Kyle sat beside him, leaning back with his arms crossed, trying to look relaxed, but his foot tapped nonstop beneath the table. Marin pressed a button on a remote. The screen lit up, and there I was, walking down the hallway with the server in my hands. Then Ethan and Kyle stepping away from the doorway. Then the tape, glinting just enough to catch the light. Then my body hitting it. Then the fall. Then the impact. Then the blood. Kyle looked away first. Ethan didn't. He just stared, jaw set, face reddening like someone had finally put a mirror in front of him after years of no consequences. I didn't stay to watch. I didn't need to. Back at my desk, my phone buzzed. An email from compliance. Subject: follow-up timeline. Do not delete body. We will be taking immediate administrative action. Please remain available. No drama, no metaphors, no corporate warmth, just action. That was the first moment I let myself believe the truth. They thought a joke would break me. They didn't expect I'd be the one to break the pattern instead. Ethan didn't come back to his office the next morning. His nameplate was still on the door, his jacket was still draped over his chair, his half-empty energy drink was still sweating on the desk, but he wasn't there, and nobody pretended not to notice. People kept glancing at the door like it might open any second, but it stayed shut, lights off, chair untouched. Kyle showed up late, eyes swollen, hands shaking just enough for me to catch it. He didn't grin this time, didn't spin his pen, didn't even look up when someone said good morning. It was strange watching two people who'd held the room so easily suddenly lose the gravity they relied on, like someone had turned off the invisible engine that powered their confidence. Around 10, Lindsay from HR sent an all-staff message. Team, please note that leadership will be conducting a departmental review today. Some meetings may be rescheduled. Thank you. No signature, no emoji, no fake warmth. That alone told me everything. Half an hour later, I got a message to report to conference room 4B. Not from HR. This one came from the regional director's assistant. I'd never even met the regional director in person before. When I walked in, Marin from compliance was there. So was the director. Sharp suit, steady eyes, zero small talk. A company laptop sat closed on the table. Mr. Turner, he said, please sit. I did. We've completed the initial review, he continued. Based on evidence gathered, including video footage, witness statements, and digital communication, you were the victim of a targeted, unsafe workplace action. This is not in dispute. Not in dispute. After weeks of being told I was dramatic, those words landed like clean air. Effective immediately, he continued, Ethan Wilcox is terminated for gross misconduct, safety violations, and retaliation against an employee who attempted to report concerns. I let the words settle, steady and quiet. Kyle Benson is also terminated, he added, for participating in unsafe behavior and contributing to a hostile environment. I didn't smile, not even internally. It wasn't satisfaction, it wasn't revenge. It was relief, the kind that runs through your bones, slow and warm. As for HR, the director said, glancing at Morin, we identified several procedural failures. The representative you interacted with has been reassigned pending further review. Reassigned. Corporate code for being quietly escorted out the side door. Marin closed the laptop. Now we need to discuss you. My pulse jumped. Just a little. The director folded his hands. You did everything correctly, Mr. Turner. You documented. You reported. You attempted to resolve things internally multiple times, and you were dismissed. We want to ensure that never happens again. He slid a folder toward me. Inside was a compensation package, medical leave fully paid, workplace injury compensation, a multi-week recovery period, and something else. Internal transfer eligibility, fast-track approval. You can choose to stay on this team under new leadership, he said, or transfer to another branch or division, whichever environment you feel most comfortable in. For the first time in weeks, I exhaled without pain. I'd like a transfer, I said. Done, he replied, already signing a form. No negotiation, no bargaining, just respect. They excused me after a few more minutes. As I left the conference room, I passed Kyle in the hallway. His badge was clipped to a small cardboard box, the standard clean-out-your-desk kit. He didn't look at me, or maybe he couldn't. Ethan was already gone. By the afternoon, the team was eerily quiet. Meetings were canceled. People typed softer. No music played from the open office speakers. Even the chatter by the coffee machine had disappeared. When I packed my things at the end of the day, carefully because of the collar, 3 different co-workers stopped by. Not to gossip, not to pry, just to say quietly, I'm glad you're okay. I'm sorry I didn't say something earlier. They shouldn't have done that to you. None of them had said a word when the jokes were happening. But now, when the dust was settling, something in the room felt different. Like the air pressure had changed. Like people finally understood how thin the line was between fun and dangerous. My transfer went through by Friday. New manager, new workspace. Nobody touched my equipment except to ask for help. When I came in wearing the collar the first day, my new manager pulled me aside. If you need time, take it. We'll cover everything. No smirk, no subtext, just decency. I didn't realize how much I'd missed that. Weeks passed. The headaches faded. The bruises did too. The collar came off. The stiffness eased. I settled into the new team. Quieter than before, but steadier. A different kind of invisible. One that didn't feel like I was shrinking to fit somewhere small. Word got around the company about what happened. Not the dramatic version, not the gossip version. The real version, slowly, in pieces, through the people who'd seen more than they'd admitted at the time. Every so often, someone from another department stopped by and asked, Hey, can I ask you something about reporting issues? How did you handle everything? I didn't give them speeches, didn't turn it into a crusade. I just told them the truth. Document everything. Tell the right people. And if the wrong people try to silence you, climb higher. One afternoon, after a long but normal day, I sat in my new office, staring at the hum of the server lights through the glass. No tape, no pranks, no voices waiting to laugh before I did. Just work. Peaceful, unremarkable work. I think that's when it hit me fully. I wasn't afraid anymore. Not of being the dramatic one, not of being the odd one out, not of speaking up. HR had called me dramatic for ending a joke that nearly broke my neck. But the only thing I really ended was the part of my life where I let people hurt me and call it culture. Everything after that, just living on my own terms.